I'm no prophet, but eventually this country is going to break up. Yeah, you know what's going to move the needle? It would be a depression. I'm not rooting for a depression, but
if you had to steelman this from the Democratic side, what would your explanation of this be?
Here's what both of us are going to be accused of, Ruslan, by talking about this. Now, to be honest, I don't think the Republican Party is all that good on this issue as well. Why?
Ruslan.
Before we get into that, guys, my name is Ruslan, and this channel exists to encourage, empower, and inspire you to live a life that blesses God. Now, I know a lot of you guys watch this channel and may not be subscribed, so if you aren't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. We are on the verge of cracking 500,000 subscribers, and I'd love to celebrate that with you. All right, now let's get into the video.
Yeah, you know what's going to move the needle? It would be a depression. I'm not rooting for a depression, but I think one of the biggest problems we have is prosperity, too much prosperity. Now, I don't want people to be not prosperous, don't get me wrong. I'm simply saying when prosperity overtakes us in the sense that we think, hey, we got this all figured out, we don't need God. Then we set ourselves up for a fall. Pride comes before the fall, as the scriptures say. And if you look at the cycle in Judges, you know, that 400-year or 350-year period when they didn't have a king, what happened to Israel? When they got prosperous, they forgot about God and they did evil. God judged them. Then they repented. They came back to God. They got prosperous again. Then the cycle went on again. They forgot about God. They did evil. Where are we in America now, if you think about it? We're on the edge of prosperity, being about to be judged, it seems to me, for the evil that we're doing.
Gosh, what do you think that looks like?
I don't know. I'm no prophet, but eventually this country is going to break up, I think. I mean, Texas is going to secede. Someone's going to say enough of this. Now, what happens? It's not as simple as that. What happens if, say, Texas secedes? What currency do they have? What about Social Security benefits? What about the 50% of people who are getting money from the federal government? Do they stop getting, you know, there's a whole bunch of dominoes that are going to fall. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I submit to you it's probably going to happen from an internal moral decline, much more so than an external enemy.
Interesting.
And that's what happened to the Roman Empire. It degraded morally from the inside. Not from an external force.
Yeah, that's interesting. You bring up Texas. What do you make of the border situation there? I've been down that rabbit hole, and I was shocked to find out that Biden basically, when he got elected, removed one of the policies, which is if someone comes over illegally at the border. And I'm an immigrant, so I think immigrants.
But you did it legally.
Yeah, we did it legally as refugees.
Yeah.
And I have friends that are dreamers and a part of the DACA thing, right? And I think that's a little different. If you come here as a baby, I don't think you're shipping anybody back to their country. They're American. That's all they know, right? But I think my understanding is that they had a law, Trump had a law under his policy that if you come over, they catch, they release back to Mexico. Biden on day one changed that law, where you catch, you release here, and they get a ticket to come back to a court date.
Yeah, what a joke.
That's when the entire migrant crisis started. All these people started hearing this thing was going to change, and that's when more and more people from Central America started coming up. And so the governor in Texas basically said that they weren't protecting the borders from a federal standpoint, and the Supreme Court did a first ruling, but I think it got shot down to a lower district court. Now they're trying to bring it back to. What do you make of all this?
Well, it seems like globalists are in charge of what's going on now. They eventually want to get to a one world government. That's their goal. And but here's what both of us are going to be accused of, Ruslan, by talking about this. If you're not for an open border, somehow you're xenophobic or you're racist or something, right?
Yeah.
Now, this is the kind of simplistic analysis that people need to avoid. This is a much more nuanced discussion than just calling somebody who says, I think we ought to have a secure border, a xenophobe. Because everybody believes in secure borders. I always ask people, you have a lock on your door? Oh, you do. Why? Because you know that security is important. You agree on a border, you're just disagreeing on where the border is.
That's good. That's good.
Right?
Yeah.
Everybody has a lock on their door because people are inherently evil, and we need to protect ourselves from evil. What is coming across that border? I mean, as Christians, we should want people to have freedom, but that doesn't mean we can uncritically accept people in this country without proper screening. I mean, we have terrorists coming over. We have drugs coming over. We have children being sex trafficked over. And Biden has turned a blind eye to all of this. Mayorkas, the head of, what is he, he's the head of the border. I can't remember the government agency he's over. But he's now about to be impeached. He won't be convicted, but he's about to be impeached by the House because he's not paying attention to the border. He's allowing all this to go on. And we don't need a new law. We just need to actually enforce the laws that are already on the books to fix the border crisis. And Biden can, in a heartbeat, do an executive order and go back to the Trump law.
And just really release them back to back, which would make less people probably come over.
That's right.
I think the compromise of the bill they're trying to pass is the Democrats want 5,000 encounters a day before the border gets shut down. The Republican wants 3,000 before the border shut down. And I'm like, these 3,000 or 5,000, whichever it is,
shut it down.
Are they still coming over?
Yeah.
We meet them there and then they come over. Like, how does this? I'm so perplexed. Okay, let me ask you this: if you had to steelman this from the Democratic side, what would your explanation of this be? Because I was talking to my wife about it, and I'm like, I really don't see I don't understand. Like, are they concerned for birth rates? So we need more immigrants, like
votes
or votes. Like, what is it? Like, so if you have to give a good faith steelman.
Well, I have not seen any arguments from that side. Maybe I just missed them. Have you seen any arguments?
I haven't.
No,
I haven't.
They're just turning a blind eye to it. It seems there's something nefarious going on here.
Yeah,
that's part of the problem. Is they don't want a secure border. And look, to be honest.
But why? Why do you think they do? I don't think it's. What is the? Don't ascribe to malicious intent, which that could be described with incompetence. Right.
Well,
like if we didn't do malicious intent and nefarious, and we said they're just incompetent and bureaucratic, then what would the good faith?
The good faith may be, well, people have a right to freedom, right, and they come here, right. While we might say they have a right to freedom, or they personally have a right to freedom, it doesn't mean America needs to provide it to them.
Sure.
It would be better if freedom was a value of the country in which they live.
Sure.
Why don't we export freedom to those countries? Because obviously not everybody can come to America. It's impossible.
Sure.
So why aren't we exporting? Well, that's imperialistic. Oh, you're going to call it imperialistic to export freedom? Really? Is that what you're I mean, so that's what we ought to be trying to do. Now, to be honest, I don't think the Republican Party is all that good on this issue as well. Why? Some in the Republican Party are governed by the Chamber of Commerce. And what does the Chamber of Commerce want? They want cheap labor. Hello? Keep that border open. So it's both parties causing trouble here. Now, at least Trump has said he would close the border. And I think as it stands right now, the number one issue in the campaign has now become border security. So, we'll see how that pans out.
Yeah.
But I would love to give people the opportunities that we have here in America all around the world, but practically it's impossible to do so.
Yeah.
I've also noticed this. Have there been any caravans going from America to Venezuela? No, there haven't been. Why? Because the left, which continually runs down this country, doesn't seem to realize that this is the country everyone wants to come to.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Because of our system.
Yep. Now, I'm going to steelman this a bit because I have these conversations with my liberal friends, and they would say, I just watched a video yesterday about this, and they would say, hey, the reason why these countries a lot of them are in disarray is because of American involvement when we were trying to fight communism, propping up anti-communist governments, such as in El Salvador, we propped up a government that was basically an extremist right terrorist group, and then that led to the rise of MS-13, and that led to some of these things happening, right?
So therefore, let MS-13 come into the country.
Right. The logic
that doesn't fit. It may be true what they said to that point.
So the logic. I'm not saying the logic is consistent. I'm saying when I make that point, hey, why do you think everybody wants to come here? Right? And they go, well, of course everybody wants to come here, but that's at the expense of us meddling in so many other countries and meddling in so many elections over the decades. I'm not saying recently. I'm talking 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago.
So would they agree then if we hadn't meddled in those countries, then those people wouldn't have a right to come here?
Probably. I would think so.
They would say that?
I think so. Well, again, the folks on the left, there's a spectrum there, right? So I would say my liberal friends would probably acknowledge and say, yeah, they don't have a right to come here, but we can't ignore why they're trying to flee these places. And in their world, oppressor, oppressed, Marxist influence. America has oppressed and or meddled and or, I mean, a lot of times, I think there's been times where we've full on been a part of assassinations You know, we've taken out people,
yeah.
and then in the name of the right party, and then that party ends up being more dangerous and disorderly to those countries.
That may be true, but it doesn't follow, therefore, then that the people in that country therefore have the right to come here illegally.
Sure.
You know,
agreed.
We should have a legal immigration. That's why you're here.
Right.
That's why my ancestors are here.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So yeah, we should have that. The question is how much.
Yeah.
And how do you process that?
How do you process that?
Yeah.
That's the tough part.
Right.
That's the tough part. Yeah. It's
but we don't need new laws because they're not currently obeying the existing laws. I mean, enforcing the existing laws.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. Outside of that point, which I think is a fair point, and I can send you. I just watched a documentary last night about us meddling in El Salvador and how kind of made the situation worse, and how we more or less acknowledged that we were a part of propping up certain groups, militia groups. This has happened in the 80s when we were fighting communism. This happened quite a bit. But remove that, which let's just say we're complicit, and or America was even the reason why some of these places went left. That's still, to your point, that still doesn't justify the and so I'm really perplexed on. That's why you're smarter than me. I'm like, steelman this for me, because I don't get it.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I heard Tucker Carlson give a talk once, and again, don't be simplistic just because I bring up Tucker Carlson that I agree with everything Tucker Carlson says.
Sure.
You know, people
funny
do
you
that.
got to give the caveats.
Yeah, I know, but I do generally agree with him on many issues. And he was talking about the fact that how do people think this is going to work out for them, right? Like, why would the left want all these people in the country if, say, there are terrorists coming over the border, or there's all these coming over the border, or these people are being trafficked, or you know, all these things that are going to negatively affect them and maybe destroy the country. And Tucker was saying they haven't thought it through. They just think it's a right, or they want a global world government, not understanding that if this were to really happen, it would destroy the golden goose, which is America.